Good evening and welcome to the Cabinet for March. Great to see everybody here. Before I move to the formal agenda, there's three issues I wanted to raise this evening. Earlier this week, the Lord Lieutenant announced there would be new Deputy Lieutenants. I want to congratulate all six of those, but in particular two I want to highlight from a Medway perspective. Simon Dean, who was the founder and CEO of Challenge Troop CIC. Challenger Troop do a lot of great work here in Medway, of course, with our armed forces history, past, present and future. They're at the heart of that. And a name that I know everybody will know, Jill Farger, who has done amazing work both as a GP, in particularly on the issue of organ donation, and most recently, many people would have seen her in a very fancy hat as one of the most recent High Sheriffs of Kent. Can I thank all six of those individuals for the service that they will give to our community, both here in Medway and across the region of Kent and Medway. Colleagues, I've got some positive news as well when it comes to the issue of education in Medway. You will be aware that I've had to report previously that we were losing our journalism accreditation here in Medway. Well, I'm pleased to say that it's back. And it's returning thanks to the new university group, London and South East University Group, which recognises the importance of that training for the profession, but also for our community and, particularly here in Medway, because the provider will be coming through KMTV, a really valued key stakeholder and partner of the community here in Medway. I don't always agree with everything they publish and produce, and that's the nature of politics and journalism, but it's great that they're here to hold us to account and to hold all people in power to account. So I want to congratulate the team at KMTV. They've done a great piece of work here. Bringing that extra accreditation back to our community means more journalists being taught right here in Medway, and obviously particularly Chatham, as we look towards the bid for Town of Culture, being able to say that we're bringing forward journalists of the future is a really great thing. So I'm incredibly proud that we've been able to do that, and we continue that working relationship both with KMTV, but of course with the London and South East University Group when it formalises on the 1st of August. And then finally, just to remind colleagues, as I know you will all be aware, we are moving towards the end of the statutory consultation being led by government on local government reorganisation. I want to thank everybody that's played their part, and Richard, through you, thanks to your team as well. I've been really pleased to take part in a number of seminars with everybody from the faith groups across Medway to the housing sector to businesses, importantly heritage and culture, and we'll talk a bit more about that tonight in the agenda, and also our voluntary sector, working again closely with our partner MVA. I was really pleased to speak at one of their events, and I know other cabinet colleagues have been talking to residents groups, stakeholders and others to encourage them to play their part and have their say in this biggest change in local government, I would argue, ever, of course, with devolution. And we've had great news from central government that we've got the opportunity to put ourselves forward. And I'm very, very clear, as I have been throughout this, we must be thought of very carefully for a foundation combined authority. It's in the best interest of 1.9 million residents. It's in the best interest of residents here in Medway. I was at the Employment Task Force earlier today, and we spoke about how actually, in that case, Liverpool was moving ahead with some really innovative stuff around apprenticeships. We need that here for our residents across the region of Kent and Medway. So thanks to everybody for your ongoing work on local government reorganisation and ultimately devolution as well. And I know we'll be playing our part as one of the 14 consultees across the region of Kent and Medway when it comes to that offer from government to think about foundation status. I hope my 13 other colleagues join us in that journey. Apologies for absence. I think we're all here. Adam Price is just walking in now, so that's great to see him here. Are you happy for me to sign the record of decisions from the previous meeting?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Item 3, declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests and other significant interests. Are there any interests? Just checking whether Harinder has an interest on item 10. Just, you may not have, but just checking whether that's the case. I think you may have.
Yes. Yes, I had declared it before. I have an interest in that I have a pavement license and a licensee holder of one of the council properties, but for the sake of item 10, I have a pavement license. So I'm guessing I would probably need to exit.
Yep, thank you. You can obviously stand in the room at the back. We're not going to send you out into a cold, don't worry. Are there any other declarations of interest? I don't think so, so that's fine. That then moves us on to agenda item 4, questions for the Cabinet. Thank you again to all those who have put questions forward. We've got 20 minutes for this item. With the number of questions submitted from the public and from members, I aim to get through all of them tonight, just so that colleagues are aware. So from that perspective, we'll take question A first. Of course, questions from the public come first. Depending on time, we may just move to verbal answers for the others accordingly, rather than written answers, I think, because we want to try and get through them all tonight. Question A, Josephine Davies from Gillingham has a question to Councillor Patterson, if she's here. Not here. Alex, did you want to give a verbal update on that, or do you want to put that in writing to the resident?
No, I think it's probably helpful to give an answer now. I'd like to thank Ms Davies for her question. The significant degradation she refers to has another name: winter. Water entering cracks and the prolonged wet and cold weather we have experienced all contribute to deterioration. Climate change, increasingly dry summers, and wet mild seasons like the one we are now emerging from present new and additional challenges in an area of local authority spending which has been chronically underfunded for decades. The freeze-thaw cycles seen in recent months have been particularly damaging, causing potholes to form or worsen very quickly, even on recently repaired roads. Our approach is always to deliver the right repair first time. However, during periods of extreme weather, we sometimes need to carry out temporary emergency works to remove an immediate safety risk. These are followed by longer-lasting repairs when conditions allow. Having lived in Medway for decades, I've seen this annual cycle repeat over and over, and I'm on the record, even as an opposition councillor, in stating that the best time to fix a pothole is before it becomes a pothole. The questioner's implication that this problem is new is incorrect. Many of the potholes appearing on Medway's roads today began life long before this Labour and Cooperative administration took control of the council. We didn't break it, but we are fixing it. However, I don't subscribe to the populist short-term obsession with pothole repairs as seen under previous administrations in Medway and in the current Chaos Council down the road at County Hall. Far from being a measure of success or a badge of honour, pothole repairs are, in my view, an indicator of failure. A reminder that those decades of cost-cutting, the lack of proactive road maintenance, have to be paid for by all of us eventually. While some political parties and elected representatives continue to sell a lie to residents, I am empowering our officers to reverse that decline. And doing that means ignoring the hypocritical posturing and hand-wringing of those who voted for cuts, but now decry the inevitable consequences of those cuts. Despite limited budgets, we continue to invest in improving our 850-kilometre network. Last year, we resurfaced 16 roads and carried out larger patching works at more than 100 locations across Medway. We plan to deliver a similar level of resurfacing and patching again this year. This approach helps slow deterioration, protects the network, and ensures we get the best value out of every pound spent. The question dismisses inspections and the grading of roads as irrelevant, but when there's not enough money to carry out all of the repairs we would like to do, prioritising those roads in need of the most urgent intervention is the only responsible way to spend taxpayers' money prudently. We direct funding where it will have the greatest impact. This includes preventative maintenance to slow further decline, targeted patching to extend the life of road surfaces, and prioritising repairs on the busiest or most safety-critical routes. To ensure that money is well spent, we have strong quality control measures in place, including post-repair inspections and requiring contractors to return at their own cost if a repair fails. We also carry out ongoing performance monitoring to ensure standards remain high. To support transparency, our DFT-required annual transparency report is available online. This sets out how we programme work and how funding is allocated across our network, so residents can clearly see how money is being used. We are also working on improving how we share information about our maintenance plans. While we are increasing the efficient monitoring of the condition of our road network in real time, using route reports from cameras mounted on council vehicles, I would continue to urge residents to report specific defects using the tool on the council website. It's guaranteed to be 100% more effective than grumbling about it on social media, egged on by those same hypocritical politicians in turquoise ties I've previously referred to. We are working hard to improve Medway's road network. This will not happen overnight, especially given the years of underinvestment and, of course, the recent damage done by extreme rainfall. But with continued investment and a relentless focus on long-term repairs, I am confident that residents who look at the bigger picture rather than the false, politically motivated narratives promoted by bad actors will recognise the difference we are making.
Thank you very much indeed, Alex. Slightly longer than I'd normally expect, but there's such an important issue which so many people are talking about. I know they'll really value that detailed, comprehensive answer. And I know through you and through Ruth DeLu, I'd want to give my thanks to the teams who are out there every single day working as hard as they can with the resources that they have. So thank you very much for that. Question B from Milo O'Connor. Milo, please come up and ask your question for Simon Curry.
Silly me. Hello, everyone. Good to be back. So my question today has kind of two parts to it. I'll get straight into it, basically. Many residents in Cliff and Cliffwoods are facing extreme difficulty finding adequate public transport to get to Medway for work. They also find difficulty getting to Medway train stations to get to day jobs in London. Lots of residents have reported and consider the bus network unreliable. Do you have any long-term plans to upgrade the road and bus network in Cliff? And would this be viable to work with the national government to extend the Strood Maidstone train line to areas such as Cliff, Cliffwoods and the other rural areas beyond Strood? Thank you very much for that. Simon?
Yep, thank you very much. Thank you, Milo, for your question. So the Cliff, there's a couple of points to the answer, really. I think it's because it's a complex issue, obviously. The Cliff and Cliffwoods are served by the 133 bus service, and that has been improving in recent years, primarily through contributions from developers and our bus service improvement plan. The route also provides direct access to Rochester and Chatham stations. However, I do recognise that for many residents, the main difficulty is reliability, particularly when trying to connect to trains for work. Through our enhanced partnership with bus operators, where we meet with them regularly, we continue to monitor performance closely and support measures that improve punctuality and passenger information. For a rural area of this size, the 133 offers a comparatively strong level of provision, but we will keep working with operators to identify opportunities for further enhancement where funding allows. With regard to the rail, the Strood Maidstone line does not pass close to Cliff or Cliffwoods, and creating a new spur or station would require substantial new national infrastructure. This is not currently being considered by Network Rail or the Department of Transport, and is pretty much out of our hands, really, in that respect. The new Medway local plan, however, does not propose major growth in Cliff or Cliffwoods, so it does not identify large-scale transport schemes or major road upgrade schemes in this area. It does, however, support improved bus services and better rail access to rail for rural communities, and we will continue working with operators, residents and national partners to support improvements as opportunities arise. And just as a sort of adjunct to that, obviously you're aware that we've submitted our local plan now in the draft form. Finally, part of the problem that Cliff and Cliff Woods have is uncontrolled development over many, many years because we did not have a local plan. Now that we've got one coming through, that will allow us much greater development control, and that those sort of housing estates that are particularly being built around Cliff would not have happened if we had a local plan 10 years ago. We will have one now, so that hopefully will put control there as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Milo, do you have a short supplementary question?
Thank you very, very much. That was, I welcome the local plan, and I'm sure many residents in Cliff welcome that as well. Just to get straight into the supplementary question, in 2024, the Kent Messenger did a piece about how many local residents were dissatisfied with the buses and that there was only 1 an hour. And there was a petition on change.org, and it was outlining that some of the buses kind of missed stops and it wasn't providing the service that was necessary to get to Medway efficiently. Straight to the question, are you aware of this petition, and has there been any work done since 2024 to address those concerns?
Thank you. Simon?
Thanks for that supplement. No, I'm not completely aware of that petition, so I will go back and pick that one up. If you could be patient with me on that one. And sorry, you want to come in?
That would be helpful. Perhaps if you've got a link to that, if you can provide it through Democratic Services, that would be helpful to see.
Yeah. I'll definitely forward that, and I'm being very forward and just saying that it was from 2 years ago, so obviously I have to put that on the record because I want to be reliable and factual. But yeah, I'll just let you know.
Thank you very much, Milo. Thanks for your question and supplementary. Whilst you take your seat, I will share with Cabinet colleagues. Of course, at the moment, this council, because of the previous administration's position, doesn't recognise change.org petitions. I would say keep an eye on the forward plan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's move to the next question, which is from Neil Davis. Neil, please come and join us. And your question is for Luella.
Yeah, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity yet again to come here and ask a question. So, as part of the Cabinet meeting in February, the portfolio holder for housing and homelessness gave an update on £100,000 that had been allocated by the Labour central government to charity and voluntary community organisations to help with homelessness and rough sleeping. Can I ask what the breakdown is with regards to which organisations have received this money and if any of it remains?
Thank you, Luella.
Thank you, Neil, for your question. So the council was notified of the additional funding for the 25-26 rough sleeping prevention and recovery grant in November as part of the government's commitment to tackling homelessness and rough sleeping. So Medway was allocated the additional 425,534, of which 85,107 was to be used towards interventions that will deliver and add value to partnerships and services within the voluntary community and faith sectors in our local area. So Medway has a strong and committed VCFS supporting rough sleepers and single homelessness. The grant conditions included ensuring services are designed to meet local needs, so reduction of high-risk repetitive of enduring homelessness, prevention and reduction in long stays and temporary accommodation. So the allocation was agreed that to the VCFS was agreed with our Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government rough sleeping advisor and allocated as follows. So this includes a small amount that came from our existing fund. £5,000 for additional training and volunteer and staff team training for One Big Family. 37,500 paid staffing to supplement volunteers at high needs supported housing provision with One Big Family. 25,000 for the winter night shelter provision for people sleeping rough with AMAT. 5,000 breakfast club for people who are homeless and have substance use issues to offer engagement and treatment services with Open Road. 21,000 towards running costs of the off-street provision and caring hands. So the top-up has been invaluable, especially over the winter period, to support Medway's winter shelter, which has been open since the 1st of January and runs until the 31st of March. So any remaining will be used. It's for the voluntary sector. It just hasn't been. So it's allocated to them. It just hasn't been issued yet. So. I also want to highlight, if I may, that in addition to the top-up grant the government announced in February, the Ending Homelessness and Communities Fund, which is a new 3-year grant programme running from 26 to 2029, the grant is open to voluntary community or faith-based organisations operating in England with an annual income below 5 million. So it's just to say that applications opened on the 21st of February and will close on the 31st of March. So if you know of anyone interested in applying, it can be found at Ending Homelessness and Communities Fund in the prospectus.
Thank you, Luella. And Neil, do you have a short supplementary question?
I think, to be fair to Luella, she's answered it, but my question would have been, one of the only ones you haven't mentioned of the community organisations that I'm aware of would be Medway Street Angels. So if there is any money left, I would be really appreciative if Medway Street Angels could be considered.
Thank you, Neil. I'll take that away and speak about the services, because it will depend on the services they provide. So those were quite specific services provided by the charities I've mentioned, but that's definitely something I'll take back. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Next question is from Elizabeth Kebble. Please, Elizabeth, come and join us. And your question's for our Deputy Leader, Teresa Murray.
Hello.
Over to you.
Could the Cabinet member outline the Council's current strategic approach to improving mental health and emotional well-being across the area? In their response, can they please include how success is measured, what key performance indicators are used, how progress is reported publicly, and how the Council is ensuring prevention and early intervention are prioritised alongside crisis response services?
Thank you for your question, Elizabeth. It's an important one. Medway Council delivered this strategic priority through our joint health and wellbeing strategy, Theme 1. The strategy's got lots of themes, and Theme 1 is healthier, longer lives for everyone. The strategy states one of our key ambitions is to promote mental health, emotional wellbeing, and resilience by encouraging community-based initiatives and facilitating social connections, whilst recognising the importance of a robust support network for people's resilience. This strategic ambition is reinforced by the One Medway Council plan and the Integrated Care Strategy. Medway Council delivered this strategic priority by commissioning the Release the Pressure helpline, the Men in Sheds project, ensure mental wellbeing is a core component of our workplace health programme and child health programme, support the setup and running of safe havens and a crisis house in Medway, and commission a wide range of young people's mental wellbeing services, including our soon-to-be-launched Medway Therapeutic Alliance. These commissioned services all have key performance indicators that are monitored and reported by the providers at regular contact management meetings. As part of my role as portfolio holder, I'm held to account by the Health and Adult Social Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee for the performance of all of these services. The Overview and Scrutiny Committee also hold other key NHS partners to account for their work on mental wellbeing services. This includes the Integrated Care Board and Kent and Medway Mental Health Trust, formerly KMPT. These scrutiny sessions are open to members of the public to attend, streamed on Council website, and all previous minutes are available for viewing on the Council website. In terms of how the success of the joint health and wellbeing strategic objectives are measured, our public health intelligence team have produced log frames, lots of data, that support the reporting of progress against all priorities, including the range of mental health and emotional wellbeing indicators. These are reported via the Health and Wellbeing Board, which I chair, Health and Adult Social Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and integrated partnership meetings, which are all open for the public to attend. And if we see that one of the indicators isn't where it needs to be, that's our opportunity to put in an intervention that will change it and hopefully turn it around.
Thank you. Do you have a short supplementary question?
How is the data collected? Is it from service users? Is it from reports from the services themselves? Is it like an inspection kind of
I can see that you're very
situation?
interested in this, Elizabeth, because it's all of those things. Absolutely. And we're very keen to make sure that lived experience plays a big part in all of the data that we collect and all of the judgments that we make. And you can look at the public health intelligence reports on gov.uk website. There's lots of interesting information there. Okay, thank you.
As rightfully said, a really important issue, which we know a lot of residents will be interested in those answers. Question E, Amanda Chinnery. You're welcome, Amanda. Do take a seat. And your question is for Simon Curry. You need to press the bottom.
Yeah.
That's it.
Evening, everybody. My question is quite simple, but I did send quite a lot of background information with it, so hopefully you've had a chance to see that as well. The success of the flagship Rochester Riverside regeneration development is compromised by only having one vehicular access instead of the 4 that were promised. And when I say promised, I mean agreed under the approved plans and part of the conditions. The Rochester Riverside Residents Association, which I'm representing tonight, would like to know what the council will do to ensure the approved accesses, which are currently years overdue, are prioritised and delivered to a published timetable to ensure there is convenient and safe access to and from Riverside before any further development is commenced. Thank you.
Simon.
Right, thank you very much for your question. And it is a massive problem. I can fully sympathise with what you're having to deal with on this one. Initially, just to say that it is a great development. There's a lot of praise in the press and stuff like that for the way this development is taking place. It has had a lot of issues over the years in terms of delivery and stuff like that, and required some kind of really ingenious work by the officers to look at the financing and restructuring, which we've been through that process. The potential additional access that you're talking about for development are Blue Boar Lane, Furrells Road and Doust Way. Those are the 3 that are currently a problem. The first 3 phases of development are all complete, including the new school, but these rely solely on the access along Gashouse Road for vehicles, albeit the Blue Boar Lane is available for cycles and pedestrians, although it doesn't have a proper surface yet. As I understand, I have walked along it. The council has been working with Vistry on ways to enable construction to proceed without placing additional demands on Gashouse Roads. With phase 7, the council worked with Vistry so that Furrells Road was to be used for construction access, but also available as emergency access for residential use if something happened to the Gashouse Road. The new houses on phase 7 were then constructed starting from Doust Way and working backwards so that new houses had their vehicular access from Doust Way and therefore did not put pressure on Gashouse Road. And that went reasonably successfully. Work is progressing to enable Furrells Road to be brought into use shortly for general vehicle traffic, and Vistry have confirmed that no construction work will commence on phases 4 and 5 until Furrells Road access is complete and available. In relation to Blue Boar Lane, Vistry have provided access up to the bridge. The bridge is, however, quite low, which requires due consideration by Network Rail and the council about its use for vehicle traffic. On the Corporation Street side of Blue Boar Lane, MHS were using it as construction access for their development, which is now complete and is now being occupied. Plans are in place for Blue Boar Lane to be surfaced and laid out for pedestrians and cycle access only, but with bollards both sides of the bridge so that it can be used for vehicle traffic in emergencies. So that's where we are at the moment. Hope that helps.
Thank you. Do you have a short supplementary question, Amanda? Oh, sorry, just press your button again. That's it. Yeah.
Sorry, my supplementary question is really one about a practical way forward with this, because I'm pleased that Councillor Curry acknowledged the current state and all the issues. But the reality is, some of us have been living there almost 7 years, and we've been having these conversations with the developers and with some of the officers in the council for more than 3 years. I've been having these conversations, and what we really need is some coordinated effort directed by the council to get things moving and get this commitment to things opening up. And so my question is I guess it's to Councillor Curry and to Councillor Patterson, for them to commit to meeting with us. We have been trying to set up meetings for a while, but we want to do this together, talk through all the issues and come up with a clear plan for how we're actually going to make this happen.
Thank you. I'll go to Simon first.
The answer is yes, definitely. I'm more than happy to come and meet with you and to talk through timetables and see how this goes forward. I won't commit my
Thank you.
colleague to
I'll
that,
go
but
to
I'll
I'll
let
go
him.
to Alex. I hope I know what the answer is.
Sorry, just to reassure Amanda that we, as ward councillors, have obviously been bringing pressure to bear such as we can through officers, and we have certainly reached a stage where we are finally making progress. But happy to put our shoulder to the wheel on that and meet and assist in any way possible.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And again, we can get those details through Democratic Services to make sure we can get that diary date. That's great. Thank you for coming. Up next is question F, which is from Raza Griffiths. Raza, please take a seat. And again, your question is to the Deputy Leader, Teresa Murray.
Well, I'm delighted to be here again. It's nice to see you. So my question is, what are the mechanisms and means by which the users of voluntary sector services can help to inform commissioning and funding decisions? In answering the question, does the Council agree that it is vital to meaningfully consult with the users of voluntary sector services to inform Council decisions on whether to fund a specific group, which the Council either is funding or should fund to meet a shortfall, and also consult them in setting the funding criteria, defining what successful bids should look like, so that funding is aligned with the real needs of service users.
Thank you. Teresa.
The Council's Shared Prosperity Fund, SPF, programme has been delivered from the outset with the intention of maximising community participation and engagement, ensuring projects are led by the community for their communities. The programme involves engagement with voluntary sector organisations throughout the process through our UK Shared Prosperity Fund, UK SPF. The board meetings and associated network provide a regular forum for voluntary sector organisations to communicate directly with the programme team, and in which feedback is consistently sought to ensure programme delivery meets the specific needs of the organisations and the communities they represent. A really good example of this is the implementation of the Summer Events Fund, which was created as a direct response to voluntary sector organisations' request to make funding available for the summer period. In addition to this, based on feedback received through engagement activities, the application form has been simplified and shortened. The voluntary sector is integral to the success of this programme, and the programme itself couldn't be delivered without their significant involvement, which can be seen through our work with organisations like Medway Voluntary Action, through their volunteering project, Emerge Advocacy, and their Emerge Medway programme of Arts and Homelessness International, with their AHI Professional Development Programme. In terms of direct engagement, the SPF team held one-to-one bookable sessions during the UK SPF Year 4 application window every Friday, which was fully booked and resulted in engagement with over 100 prospective applicants. These sessions were open to anyone to attend and provided invaluable feedback that helped inform the process moving forward. This is something we plan to continue through the next phase of the programme, which is the Medway Together Fund, in which the voluntary sector will continue to be critical to the delivery. Prior to the Shared Prosperity Fund, the Community Renewal Fund was a good example of this approach, with skills and employment outcomes delivered by 10 voluntary sector partners. We also work closely with the voluntary sector through our adult education service, ensuring that reported needs are met where possible through the curriculum. Service users are central to shaping effective voluntary sector decision-making. We use a range of community methods to ensure voices directly influence priorities and investment decisions. These include town centre forums and partnerships, which bring together residents, service users, community groups, and other local partners to identify emerging needs and highlight gaps in provision. Placemaking initiatives, such as the Gillingham Co-Creation Programme, give opportunity for structured engagement through workshops and public events where people can share lived experience and influence local solutions. Together, these approaches ensure that funding criteria and commissioning decisions are grounded in the real experience of service users that align to the priorities of our community.
Thank you, Teresa. Do you have a short supplementary question?
It's a slightly longer one, but thank you so much. My supplementary, I'm a mental health service user, and I use Megan Complex Emotional Needs support group, and I realise that's mainly funded through the NHS, but I think you should be aware of it. And that is regularly attended by 10 to 14 people with complex emotional needs, you know, often hospitalised if they don't go there. So high level of need and, you know, very expensive to use mental health and emergency services. So we want to prevent that. There will be so that's going to close, and there will be new funding for a time limited toolkit on dealing with very specific topics, which will be offered instead. But service users have said that they want to keep the current ongoing open-ended format. They say that's best for their mental health, to keep them out of expensive mental health inpatient wards. Now, the reason for the ending of Megan's current peer support group is because commissioning, I would argue, is skewed, and I would really urge that we look at the way commissioning decisions are made. So first of all, there is a tendency to novelty.
If you just want to get to the question,
okay,
I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Basically, we don't want novelty, we want continuity. We don't want something time limited, we want something that's ongoing and co-produced with service users. And we want something that smaller providers can apply for, not for the whole of Kent and Medway. So these commissioning criteria are not always aligned with the needs and wishes of mental health service users. So what can be done to ensure that the criteria aligned with our needs and wishes?
Thank you. A really important issue, and I'm going to give an opportunity to Teresa to respond.
Thank you. I know Megan CIC very well. I've had several meetings with the people that run it, and I've been along to some of your support groups, as you know, to see how you're getting on. They are commissioned by the NHS, and the decision that has been made about the type of support that is provided is based on a model that the NHS have decided is an appropriate model. Now, that doesn't stop Megan getting involved in other things, and I know that they do, and they're very visible when we have voluntary and community sector events and marketplaces. I'm always happy to meet with them and talk things through, but I can't directly influence the commissioning that the NHS do for that particular workshop.
Thank you. That's very clear. And thank you for that question again. That concludes the public questions. We've got two members' questions. I don't think either member is here. I will give a brief verbal update to the question to me from Councillor Wildy, to firstly thank him for the question, and secondly say that he was present along with myself and Nina at a meeting recently where this issue was discussed. It wouldn't be appropriate at this stage to seek specific allocations of Section 106 funding when we haven't actually been formally consulted as a council yet on the planning application. The other thing I would say very clearly, of course, we want as many good sports facilities in Medway, but it's important we look across the whole of Medway, which is why the team at the moment are doing two really important pieces of work, a playing pitch strategy and a sports facility strategy. They will come up with what Medway needs as a whole. But on that Section 106, although we haven't been formally consulted yet, it's very clear from professionals that that Section 106 contribution will almost certainly be very strongly, if not unanimously, within the Medway area. But at this stage, we haven't been consulted. So obviously we wait for that. And of course, there is reference to the fact that we were told funding would not be available unless Medway formally requests it, according to the question. If the individual who has stated that wishes to give £200,000 to Medway based football club, Lordswood Youth FC, I'm sure they would welcome that very much indeed. That is a matter for them to conclude on. I'll then move to Alex for the response to Councillor Andrew Lawrence's question.
Thanks, Vince. Yeah, just quickly to respond. The Medway School Street scheme began in March 2024. And every unauthorised driver who puts children in additional danger by breaking the rules, whether carelessly, recklessly or willfully, is subject to a penalty charge notice. This data provided is from the 4th of March 2024 to the 28th of February 2026, and the value of closed penalty charge notices is £896,801. Open PCNs and outstanding balance £663,185. For clarity, a School Street PCN is £70, but a 50% reduced price of £35 is applied if paid within 14 days. If no payment is made, the PCN will increase in price following legislation. So 67.81% are paid in full. 9.1% were successfully appealed through the Council's appeal process, and 0.8% were cancelled following an appeal to the Independent Tribunal.
Thank you very much, Alex. Again, we've gone slightly over the time limit there, but I think there was a number of key issues, and getting that information out now as much as we can, we'll always try and do. So thank you very much, and thank you to those residents who came along to ask questions. You are welcome to stay, and you're welcome to not stay as well, whatever you wish. Of course, you can see the rest of the meeting online. Let's move on to the first substantial and substantive agenda item, which is adult social care. And pleased to hand over to Teresa.
Thank you very much, Vince, and I'm really pleased to commend the new adult social care strategy to Cabinet tonight, and to tell you that it's been through scrutiny and the Health and Wellbeing Board. So I'm very pleased about that. And lots of our partners across Medway, including other providers of care, users of care, and their families, as well as all of our staff, were able to contribute to this strategy. So it was a really strong piece of engagement. We hadn't had a strategy for a long time. And because of the demand that we're seeing in adult social care, because of our determination to improve services, as the CQC have asked us to do, and more importantly than that, because we want our services to be a gold standard for those vulnerable people that we're looking after in Medway, it's been really good to be able to put the strategy together. And it sends a message, actually, to people who are working for us now and who want to work for us in the future, that we're absolutely determined to maintain a high-quality service. I'm pleased to tell you as well that the strategy supports the One Medway Council Plan. It supports the Joint Health and Wellbeing Strategy. So we've made sure that it aligns with other things that we're doing across the council and other things that we're doing with our partners, as well as supporting the government's NHS 10-year plan vision of shifting from reactive hospital-based care to proactive, community-led and preventative models of care. So we've wrapped everything in to this strategy. And if we consider that the population in Medway at the moment, 223,000 people, 174,000 roughly are adults aged 18 to 64, and 48,785 are 65 and over. And last June, we had 3,038 adults receiving long-term care and support from Medway Council, 1 in every 74 adults, and the majority of those, 57%, need physical support for personal care. followed by people with learning disabilities, 9%, so lifelong, and mental health needs, 8%. And all of our demographic data shows that the ageing population will continue to rise significantly over the coming years, and we want people to be able to live well for longer. So the strategy is all about that as well. It's defined by making sure that we spend money wisely and that we're accountable for everything that we spend. And there's 5 strategic commitments in there that we have consulted with lots of people on, and I really like the wording. So the first one is being bold and open to new ideas, because we want to embrace technology, listen to our workforce, and listen to people who are using the service. Improving how we work and think together, because anything that we do needs to be co-produced and is evolving all the time. So we know that there'll be cross-sectoral collaboration. Building strong partnerships, something I think that we're pretty good at, and we recognise that this is not just the responsibility of the council alone. It means that we are determined to continue to work well with the NHS, the voluntary sector, and our partnership care providers. Listening, sharing, and working together, a new element of the strategy that absolutely wasn't there before. Regular engagement with people who use the services, carers, and communities that ensure we're responsive and inclusive. And to do that, we've got regular monthly community involvement groups now being held. The ones in Chatham and Gillingham are already up and running. And I was very pleased a couple of Fridays ago to go along to the one in Gillingham. It was well attended, and the people there were really generous with their time and sharing their experiences and being prepared to think about how services can develop. And the last one is being fair, prepared, and focused on prevention, which we do with our public health teams. We've engaged with 800 older adults just in the last calendar year, receiving support for strength and balance, physical activities, helping to reduce social isolation, and we want to grow that so that we intervene at an early stage and help people to use our services and think about keeping themselves healthy and well for the future. So we're driving it through with a phased implementation. There'll be a co-production board, which will be central to delivery, and that will have service users and other members of the community on it. And we'll monitor it and talk about what success looks like. And if there are things that aren't going well, we'll listen to people and make sure that we change them. So I'm really pleased to commend the strategy to you. I'm looking forward to how it goes and what we learn from it and the way it contributes to service improvement. It will run until 2028 and align with the timescales for local government reorganisation, but I'm sure it will lay foundations of how we want to provide care in the future when the council is bigger than it is now.
Thank you very much indeed, Teresa. I'll take Tracy first.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that, Teresa. The first thing I want to say is how accessible and easy to read I thought the strategy was. Very, very straightforward, easy to find the information, to find out what's going to be happening, facts and figures. So that was really appreciated. One of the things I wanted to comment on is adult social care is under a great deal of pressure. And I just wanted to mention the tireless work carried out by unpaid carers, because I really do feel that without them, the system would buckle. And it was really pleasing to see that there was a thread going through that strategy which recognised the contribution that unpaid carers made. They were involved in developing the strategy, and you can see quite clearly how their needs are being considered and how things are being put in place to help to support these carers so that they can carry on looking after their loved ones in the way that they do. They really are key partners in all of this, and they aim to reduce strain on them, to improve the well-being for both the carers and for their relatives is really hugely important and is a really welcome part of the strategy. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Simon, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. And like Tracy, I just how easily accessible this report was, and how the need for it is very clear. I just wanted to stress that urgency actually more than anything else. I mean, those figures that are outlined in part 4 of the report about this massive increase in demand, which is clearly a sign there's a problem. And it's a generational problem that we're trying to address here. People getting to older age and not being mobile and having issues around that is a result of how they've lived their lives. We can't escape that fact. And addressing that through this strategy is what this is about. So it takes us to the 5th of the sort of priorities within there, the key 5 commitments that you've got there about that focus on prevention and how important that is. And that covers everything from having your local social group, whether you're quilt making or you're visiting friends or whatever it is you're doing in the community where you go every week to find help and support and understanding, to our green spaces and how they provide that sort of physical encouragement and all those issues. So it wraps everything together, and the outcome is that those figures that are outlined will start to come down. And that ties into our marmot approach and everything else. So this strategy is fundamental. It lies at the heart of so many things that we're trying to achieve as a council. So I really welcome this. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. I can't see any other colleagues, so before I come back to you, Teresa, a couple of points from my perspective. I would wholeheartedly agree. Tracy raises a really important point around unpaid carers, and of course, since we last met as a cabinet, we're doing some great stuff around kinship, which of course is at the other end of the age spectrum, but again, making sure that those family members stepping up and stepping out are getting the support that they need, and I know that will be a key focus of this strategy moving forward as well. And certainly from my perspective, I think this is an excellent piece of work. As Tracy said, very accessible. You know, it's something which we say time and again, we shouldn't take that for granted, but actually people who are moving into thinking about care for the first time. And I know one of the things you've talked to me about a lot over the last 12 months are those families where perhaps they've thought that they won't need to interact with the council, but particularly because of the cost of some care packages people have privately, they're having to come to us at a later stage. So again, encouraging people to start that conversation early, I think, is really important. So no, huge thank you to you personally. I know you've taken a strong political lead on this, but the team as well of officers who have worked hard to deliver what I think will be something which no doubt, in my mind, 4 new councils will be looking at when they're thinking about how do we deal with adult social care across the region of Kent and Medway. Back to you.
Thank you, everybody, and Vince. It was really nice to see you, as always, and Richard and friends from our management team at the Social Care Improvement Board. We had one of the meetings today, led by our independent chair, Pat Greenhull, and she has really praised, as all of you've done, the kind of way that the strategy is written and its accessibility, and that's been very deliberate. And, excuse me, actually was one of the things that people said to us most frequently in the consultation. Make sure we can read this, make sure it uses language that we say. And Tracy, you make a key point about unpaid carers. They are absolutely invaluable. And in the community involvement group, sorry, excuse me, it was really nice to see that we had unpaid carers there, including, someone's going to get me a drink of water.
Yep. We have real-time care happening as we speak. Thank you, Kelly.
Oh dear. Coughing fit moment. Thank you very much, Kelly.
Strategy is so good, it's taking your breath away.
Residual cough from virus that I had. Anyway, one of the things that was really nice about that particular group was that we had carers there whose loved ones had died, but they still wanted to come in and share their experiences and support other people who were caring for each other. So I think that shows the kind of level of commitment in Medway that we've got from unpaid carers and families, that they want things to work for the future. And Vince is right. This is going to set the foundations for a bigger council, for people that will be working with our colleagues who haven't delivered social care before. So I'm really hopeful that it sends a strong message that things can be good.
Thank you very much indeed, Teresa. Colleagues, happy to support the recommendations? Thank you. Let's move on to the next item, which sits with me, which is the Crisis and Resilience Fund. I'll move the recommendations as laid out in paragraph 1, and I want to place on record my thanks to Gemma and her team for the outstanding piece of work that's happened here. It's worth taking colleagues back over the journey to where we find ourselves today and moving forward with what we have in front of us. Of course, the Household Support Fund was created as a result of COVID, and it led to some good support being in place. But one of the challenges was, and I pay tribute particularly to my friend and colleague Tracy Coombs, who had to write to government to tell them, don't stop delivering this. It's critically important for our community. We've now got a government who gets that, but also gets that we are in a different place from when this was first created. So this is about, to use that cliche, it will be doing what it says on the tin. This is about building resilience, both individual resilience, community resilience, and collective resilience, but also making sure that for those individuals and families in crisis, it is reactive and there to support individuals. I draw attention in particular, to begin with, to paragraph 5.4. Some of the stuff here shows actually the unique ways that we will be taking this forward. Increasing capacity within the team. We know that there's more work to do, so making sure people have that easy access when they need it. Enhancing the offer around Medway adult education. We're using some of this funding, as we saw at the budget, to enhance English, maths and English as a second language, to support skills within Medway, to ensure that people have better skills to cope with life, and importantly, better skills to be able to step into employment. It's really important that resilience is there for people. We're going to have a community supermarket, and we'll talk about that more when it comes back to Cabinet in due course. We're excited about that. We are excited about that being something which will add hope to people, moving away from the model, which I appreciate at times of crisis, are really important, that ability to just reach out to someone like the Trussell Trust. But they themselves would say, actually, we want to have a wider offer. And actually, in one sense, their model, which says if you're here more than 3 times, there's a problem, actually having something like a community supermarket accessible to the community of Medway, I think that's a really important next step. It will also align closely with one of the many successes we've had. And again, Teresa, I pay tribute to you and the brilliant public health team who've led on that food partnership approach. I was very lucky enough to be at one of your annual sessions on that, hearing actually how people who are producing food want to be more of that conversation as to how do we get that to the communities here in Medway. So something which I know is important. Critically, we can't do this by ourselves. We're really clear on this. So again, going actually in one sense back to Luella's question and her response earlier on, in tackling some of those big issues we have as a society and as a community, we will be the enabler. We will support organisations. The council doesn't have to do everything, but the council needs to be part of that conversation as much as possible. And I think there's something specifically, and we've talked earlier on, of course, in the last item around adult social care, something specifically for those accessing both children and adult social care. Last time I was on the BBC Politics South East show, we talked about the sandwich generation, those individuals who have both got caring commitments for their children and their adults as well, their parents. So from that perspective, again, focusing on that. Of course, as corporate parents, we'll want the Crisis and Resilience Fund to look carefully at how we treat care leavers. Again, we'll be doing that as well. We'll be working closely using some of the technology and items that we've purchased and commissioned previously through the Household Support Fund. They'll continue to be there. It's worth saying that KCC, who are the other holder of this fund in our region, have taken a similar approach as we have as to probably the issue which has raised the most questions, and that's on the issue of free school meals. Now, I was due to speak to BBC Radio Kent tomorrow morning, but they've got other people to talk to, so that's perfectly fine. But look, let's be very clear. This is not necessarily a decision that either KCC or Medway would choose to or not choose to do. the government department, the DWP, have been very clear. They want to see a move away from blanket approaches. So I think two things I'd say. Government guidance is clear. They want us to move away from that, and we have to listen carefully to that. They are the ones providing this funding, and actually they have talked about a cash-first approach. So again, giving those individuals, even at a time of crisis, I would argue more respect, and ultimately, again, building up their resilience, not having to use a voucher scheme, but actually, and that's not to denigrate good people like the Medway Food Bank and Trussell Trust who do have a voucher scheme for accessing that. That's right and appropriate for them, but government have been clear they want us to take this approach. So I'm really proud of the work that's happened here, really proud of the fact that we are making this money work in a way which will support those families most in need, support our community sector as well, our voluntary sector, to make sure that they're getting the resources they need to be able to deliver even more for our community. But at the heart of this, ultimately, again, the clue's in the name, for those families who are in crisis. And we know, particularly because of, at the moment, international events, the cost of living crisis will be hitting people who have never had to reach out before. So later in the summer, we'll be coming forward not with the cost of living plan, but with a crisis and resilience plan that will be updated from what we've had previously, but we'll have a greater focus on what we're delivering through this scheme tonight. So again, thank you to everybody who's made this possible. I'm very happy to take questions and comments from colleagues. I'll start with Teresa, and then Tracy, then Alex.
Yeah, thank you, Vince. And I think special thanks to Gemma Gilly and the team. Gemma's here with us tonight, and it's really important to acknowledge the way that that team have completely transformed the council's approach to helping families who are in need, but doing that in a very practical, respectful way. And I wanted to say, Vince, that we've still got space on the holiday activities scheme for Easter. There's still time to apply if you want to. Fantastic activities for our low-income families right across Medway, and some things that people can do all together as a whole family and get a hot meal every day. So it's really important that we encourage people and that we ask all of our schools and everybody to make sure that people sign up. What I wanted to say about the move from crisis to resilience is that, look, if you're on a low income, we ask you as a society to be very transparent about that. People on low incomes have to tell all sorts of people about how much money they've got and whether they've got any savings and how they pay their bills, whereas rich people never have to be held accountable to anybody. We don't know how much the people on the Sunday Times rich list have got, really. They go on there and, you know, there we are. We know that they've got loads of money, but they don't have to demonstrate their wealth in the same way that people have to demonstrate their poverty. And for me, moving from crisis to resilience actually is about helping to change that, making sure that people get help that puts them in a position of dignity, that puts them in a position where they can make choices, rather than putting them in a position where they have to tell the whole story before actually something comes to help them. And I think we do very well to remember that, actually.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Tracy, please.
Thank you very much. The first thing I want to say is that I really welcome the greater certainty that a 3-year settlement brings. I can remember 2 years ago when I was in communication with Gemma, and we were literally weeks away from what we thought was going to be a cliff edge for our families. It was left right to the wire where we did not know what was going to happen. With this 3-year settlement, at least we can offer more certainty to those residents in Medway who might need the support. And it's important to understand that residents who are in real crisis will still get the support that they need. We will still be able to offer that support to residents. But I do feel that building up resilience so that residents don't have to rely on this crisis funding is a really important step. And for me particularly, I'm really pleased that we've been able to put funding into Medway adult education so that we can continue and expand our numeracy and literacy upskilling programmes for adults and continue to expand our ESOL programme for adults, because that will help to build that resilience. That will mean that adults and residents in Medway are better equipped for budgeting their own households, to move into the workplace, to improve their skills and to become more employable. So I really appreciate that, because really, we wish this fund didn't have to exist, and by building up that resilience, it means that we can, in time, start to move away from that, so that families can have, you know, the responsibility for their own spending, that they can do these things with dignity, that they're not reliant on coming to other people for help. So I do welcome this. I welcome the move, and it's important to know, though, that no child will go hungry in Medway during the school holidays. That those families who find themselves in crisis and most in need will not be turned away. They will still be supported through a number of means, as Teresa said, through the holiday and food activities, through our family hubs and all sorts of other means. So we will continue to support our residents while helping them move towards financial security for themselves. So I do welcome it.
Thank you very much, Tracy. Alex.
Thanks, Vince. I just, as I am often want to introduce a little bit of politics into this, because I think it's really important that there's a certain party that talks a lot about lest we forget in a different context. I want to talk about lest we forget the party of 30p Lee. And actually, that's two parties now, because those disgusting comments made by Lee Anderson, an MP on a salary of nearly £100,000, were made when he was a Conservative MP. Now, I don't know quite where he's placed in the brains trust that is the Reform Party UK now. I'm guessing it's dwindling every time there's a defection. But actually, the contempt that those comments showed for people in crisis really tell you everything you need to know about that party, a party of millionaires who believe that they would be better poor people than people who are actually poor. And I think that this scheme here, you know, talking about resilience is the opposite of that. It's actually an opportunity to stick two fingers up to 30p Lee. I can barely conceal my contempt for the excuse for a man that made those sort of comments. And, you know, this is very often hidden poverty, and in Medway sometimes it's not very hidden, not very well hidden at all, and that's a tragedy. And you know, we don't all have to have direct experience of things to believe them to be true, but I am reminded of an experience I had when I was probably about 12 years old. I was invited to a friend's house during the school holidays, trying to come over and play my, you know, whatever. And I was dropped off by my parents at his house, which wasn't very far away. And his parents were at work. And the day went on, and lunchtime came, and lunchtime passed, and there was never any mention of food. And I'd like to think that I had enough emotional awareness at the time to realise why that was. And I didn't say a word, but the realisation then that he had two working parents and there was no food in the house. And that is the shameful story for so many people, that, you know, it's a shame that is hidden behind closed doors, and people shouldn't be ashamed, and they certainly shouldn't be shamed by dreadful human beings like Lee Anderson, MP. And I'm really glad, as Tracy is, angry that this sort of support has to exist, but glad that it's existing in that wraparound way, which recognises that if there was food in that house, my friend would probably have had it and his parents would have done without. And that's the reality of only dealing with the symptoms of a problem. And this gets to the heart of actually trying to tackle with targeted resources the underlying cause. So I'm pleased to support this scheme.
Thank you very much, Alex. I can't see any other member. Oh, Nina, please. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Vince. I would also like to pay tribute to Gemma and her team members. And sometimes communities only hear about, you know, what's going wrong, but I think we do need to acknowledge that when things are done so well within the council services, that community members hear about it. And Medway is actually a kind and compassionate community, and I used to see regularly, like, you know, if someone was saying like, I'm in financial crisis, what do I do? I saw so many community members quote the hardship support fund, like, and I do know that people who did access it, you try to make the route as easy as possible so that people didn't have to give too many answers when they were already known to the services especially. And I really welcome this crisis resilience fund that is aimed at supporting people in crisis, but also aimed at building their resilience. At the same time, I am very confident that with you and your team, you will once again make such a big difference in the lives of those most vulnerable as well, and you won't allow that, those families to fall through the safety net. And I really would like to also take the opportunity to pay tribute to all the voluntary sectors, as well as all the community supermarkets, all the partners that have joined hands to support our communities most vulnerable. And how often do we get the opportunity to recognize that work as well? So I would really like to take this opportunity to do that. And the other thing that I really welcome about this particular fund is how people who are accessing the crisis support, we will also be able to be redirected to appropriate services, be it adult service or children's service or mental health or financial services, and I know from referring previous service users to your department that they will get the best support and really compassionate sort of consideration for the cases as well, because I think that wraparound support is sometimes what a compassionate community should do, and here in Medway we do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Nina. And can I thank all colleagues for their contributions on this particular issue. Look, as Tracy rightfully says and Alex echoed, I wish we didn't need a crisis and resilience fund, but we do. We do for the reasons that actually all four speakers actually have laid out in their contributions. So therefore, we have some political choices. And in my view, with the rules that we have been set by central government, I think that we have got some innovative, fresh and new ideas alongside some very traditional approaches. And in very simple terms, as Tracy said, particularly when it comes to families, the support will be there for you. We will make it as easy as practically possible. We have to always have a level of safeguarding because this is taxpayers' money, but not to the point of putting off people accessing the system. And importantly, as it says within the report, there are 3 ways of this to be accessed. 1 by the individual themselves, 2 by Medway Council staff and councillors, and 3 by other professionals. So this is Medway's got your back. Medway has got your back. So again, I put this plea out there loud and clear, and I've said this many, many times, and I'll say it again tonight before we move to the vote. This council cares about the people of Medway. This council wants to make sure that in their most difficult moment, this council is there for them. We do that in so many ways, but sometimes it's the practical support that will come through this funding. Indeed, the practical support, as Tracy talked about better education, giving people more skills, making them more resilient themselves. But even with that, there will still be those occasions where people need to access crisis and emergency support. And this council will be here for you every single day that this policy is in place till the end of this council existing in 2028. Thank you, colleagues. Are you happy to agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Thank you. Let's move on. Blimey, that's a long title. Local Heritage Asset List for Medway. Request for adoption of selection criteria and online publication. Simon, over to you.
Thank you very much, and you saved me having to read it out, so appreciate that. So this is very exciting, actually. I know it's quite a lot of the work that I cover, I get excited by, but this is another area where I do. And a huge thanks to Dave Harris and to Debbie Salter and the rest of the team for pulling this together. Behind the scenes, there is a huge amount of work gone into creating a list, which sounds a bit simple and simplistic, but actually it's so much more than a list. This is a story being pulled together here of the story of Medway, the history of Medway, and most importantly, the people of Medway. This is what this list will do. And it's about diversity and inclusion and people coming in from outside. Medway was tiny when it first started, however many 100 years ago, in whatever the village form it was back then. But now it's a big place with a lot of people and a lot going on. And this list will kind of highlight all those important moments all the way through that history. So that's what this is about. Government and Historic England have encouraged local authorities for a number of years to produce this list of locally important heritage assets. And these are the ones that don't fit into our national criteria of listed buildings and all that kind of stuff, but they are hugely important at a local level. Our local plan, a new local plan, which is currently under submission, commits us to this local heritage asset list with appropriate policies. And what we're asking tonight is for colleagues to approve the draft selection criteria and the process and the publication of the first draft of this list, and publication on our website. There's 3 appendices. There's a Medway Local Heritage Asset List criteria in Appendix A for selection. Appendix B just maps all our historic parks and gardens, which is a fantastic piece of work, and obviously something that I know very well indeed. And then also the Appendix C is a list of historic farmsteads, which Medway was a big farming community and a woodland management community for centuries. And the big farmstead over at Shawstead, which is part of the Capstan Country Park, I know very well. And in fact, I met one of the farmers who lived there back in the olden days, so it's quite exciting. So there's a lot going into this. This work forms part of a wider heritage strategy, and I'm sure Nina can reflect on that in due course, about our local assets, considering all those issues around those, and then it adds in the extra value to them, if you like, by giving them planning support, which is so important. They get recognition within our planning system. And one thing we're doing within the midst of all this is including what we call intangible assets. Those things which don't have a physical form, but yet are equally important. UNESCO defines these and safeguards them under themes like tradition and inclusiveness, representation and community bias. And by doing this, Medway is going to be unique in England. No one else is doing this at the moment, so we will have this nationally sort of initiative, if you like, to encourage other authorities to do the same, to recognise these intangible assets. The work is supported. We had a Historic Places panel here last year, and their recent report, which came out in February, supports this approach that we're taking. So it's all very well founded, if you like, and it works alongside our Heritage Place team who've created the Medway Heritage Map, which can be seen on our website. And anyone who loves a good map, this is a good map. So that's exciting too. So all in all, it brings together buildings, landscapes, cultural traditions, personal collections, and even recipes are included in this if you want them to be. The project's very exciting. It's inclusive. So I suspect that all of us are going to chip in at some point and add to the list if we possibly can. And I know that organisations like Chatham Intra and Arches Local are very excited by what this is doing. So looking for colleague support for option A in paragraph 5.1 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Nina, I'll come to you first.
Thank you, Vince. And thank you, Simon, as well, and the lead officers, Dave and Debbie, for this important report that demonstrates Medway Council's absolute commitment to submit the local plan that does include careful consideration of local heritage assets that are important to our local community. This report outlines, as Simon has said, historic parks, gardens that are enjoyed by the community and is of local significance, and also historic farmsteads that are that have been selected by the council's conservation officers using the approved selection criteria. And as we can see, this Medway Local Heritage Asset List forms part of the important Medway Heritage Place program aimed at preserving and raising the profile of our local heritage nationally as well. I'm very pleased that the heritage assets listed in this report will be added to the mapping system so that they can be material consideration when determining any new planning applications. I also applaud our interdepartmental commitment to implement recommendation, as Simon has just referred to, from UNESCO and Historic England to consider both Medway's tangible and intangible heritage assets, which does mean that Medway Council will become a local authority in adopting this approach. And that is very exciting. And by intangible cultural heritage, it does mean our diverse communities, different skills, knowledge, expressions, oral history, arts, social practices and expressions, and Medway's festive events that are valued, and also the diverse knowledge and skills transmitting from one generation to the next. These are all important because it is part of Medway's identity. There is clear community and heritage sector support for this, as evidenced by the 2025 Medway Heritage Audit carried out as part of the National Heritage Lottery-funded Heritage Place program here in Medway, and the highly positive Historic Places panel visit last September. And you have just referred to the report that came out in February this year, which really applauded Medway's efforts and recommended ongoing involvement of the community in the conservation and enjoyment of historic environment, highlighting the social, economic, cultural, and environmental benefits that these bring. I'm also very proud that Medway's Heritage Place team, funded by the Heritage Lottery Fund, have been very successful in engaging our local community in developing Medway's heritage map. It has been an exciting process, and all the assets on the Medway Heritage Map have been submitted by our local residents as well as members of public who are interested in Medway heritage, including boats, buildings, archives, historical landscapes, cultural traditions, to name just a few. It is equally encouraging to note our conservation officers working together with the Heritage Place team to ensure that our strategy for Medway Heritage provides a robust framework for managed conservation and celebration of our rich heritage, encompassing both corporate responsibilities and planning functions of the Council, as well as supporting our communities to have a very strong voice in decision-making when it comes to heritage conservation. So I'm very much in support of this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex?
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I always come to these heritage items with the enthusiasm of someone who has chosen to make Medway their home, and I think that sometimes when you grow up somewhere, you can be blind to the absolute joy and wonder of just how visible the history is in Medway, but it can present itself in different ways. And I was at a court meeting of the Rochester Bridge Trust last week, where I serve as an assistant to the court, and there was a discussion of the current hostilities in the Middle East and the potential impact on the activities of the trust. And a comment was made by a member of the court, well, we survived the War of the Roses, so I think we'll probably be okay this time, which is perhaps a flippant way to look at the current affairs, but certainly highlights, you know, just one example of an organisation that dates its history back to the 14th century and preserving heritage that was left to us by the Romans. I'm really excited to hear about another map that I can look at. I've got a map in my kitchen, which is all the Roman roads of Britain presented as a tube map, and I'm really pleased to see that Rochester is, of course, an important stop on that virtual tube map. But it's exactly those intangible pieces of heritage that I think are really important, and they're the things that I miss about my place of birth as well, the sort of lost bakery items that you used to be able to buy. So the idea that recipes can be part of this. You know, so let's see. I don't know just what the Medway provenance of them is, but you know, let's make sure that we get Kentish Huffkins on there, local recipes for bread pudding. But I'll pass on the gypsy tart. I'm afraid that's just not my taste. I'm afraid. But you know, it's still really important that those recipes are handed down. They are the people's treasure, and you know, having them named and listed is a really important aspect of ensuring that those traditions survive.
Just for clarity, Alex Patterson was speaking in a personal capacity when it comes to the issue of gypsy tarts. Teresa.
Yes, thank you very much, Simon and Nina, for your contribution as well, because I think that what this does is bring together two important aspects of our determination to protect the things that are important to people in Medway. We've got the local plan coming through. The local plan will be able to refer to this, and developers will be told very clearly about the things that are important to Medway, the things we need to preserve and protect, the things that we need to integrate into new developments. Because obviously one of the things we want to do with the local plan is make sure that our history is carried forward through all the new developments and infrastructure that actually happens. So it's very, very timely. And I think it's characterized by that diversity. So you know, there are all sorts of things that I value in Medway. One of the things that I'd like to see on the list are the pakoras that they make in my local Gurdwara, because I've enjoyed them for years, and then actually they're really important to lots and lots of people who visit the Gurdwara and knew the friends there when they were in Rochester in my ward, and now up at Maidstone Road there. So I think that kind of recognition actually helps define us. It helps people understand who they are, where they came from, what they share. And I'm very pleased to see this. Thank you for making sure we've brought it forward, Simon. And it sends a message to anybody who is trying to pretend that new developments will ignore the important things about Medway, our important history and our important diversity. This shows, of course, we're not going to. Actually, it's even more important, and it'll be nice to see the local plan inspector having a look at this and making sure that it's included.
Thank you. I can't see any other colleagues, so I'll say a couple of bits. Firstly, in nearly 3 years, this is the first agenda item that's made me hungry by the end of it. Blimey, pakoras and gypsy tart, blimey. But seriously, look, this is really important. And I think the message which is clear, both in this paper for our agenda, but actually within the spirit of this, is of course, there'll be a couple of castles and a cathedral in there. There'll be a dockyard in there. Those are given. But actually, I want to see the view from the top of Victoria Gardens. I think that is the most spectacular view in Medway. I'll be suggesting that. Other views are available. We've got some great sporting heritage, some doing better than others tonight. So all of those things. So what's important to people is important to people, and that's what we want to know. And I think the ability, again, particularly, we'd be doing this at any point, but particularly with the focus of LGR in front of us, I think capturing that Medway collective thought on what's important to Medway. You know, what is our heritage? What are the assets that we value? And those aren't just bricks and mortar. They are pieces of history. They are personal experiences. They are something which have been in generations of families, you know, parts of the community for 70, 80, 100 plus years. All of that coming forward in a way which will be valued not just by us, but from people who will sit in these chairs for decades to come. And the fact that we're proactively choosing to do this in a way I think is very, very positive. And it goes back to that wider vision. And again, working with our regional and national partners, again, I think people can see the journey Medway's on. It's incredibly positive, and making sure that once again, this is not the council taking a decision. This is a council saying to the 292,000 residents, we want to hear from you. And this is a great opportunity for many of those community organisations. And Simon, I know you in particular, because of where you represent as a ward councillor, would recognise in particular the brilliant work of the Arches Local, who probably could fill up all 500 spaces themselves. But there are loads of examples of that across Medway, the parish councils, the town centre forums, the Friends of groups. All of them will have their part to play in bringing forward what I think will be a really exciting piece of work. So thanks for your leadership. I know you're working particularly closely with Nina on this as well. And I know we all look forward to seeing the final outcome of this. Good luck to whoever's got to whittle that list down to around 500. It's not me. Simon, back to you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Vincent. Thanks, colleagues, for contributions, particularly Nina, who's put a lot into this as well. I think it's really, this is a lovely thing, because as I said at the start, this is about telling our story and getting all the elements of the story in place. I mean, I often, you mentioned castles and cathedrals, which we have, and we have dockyards and all that sort of stuff. But one of the things that came out in the neighbourhood plan for Luton, for the Luton Arches area, was the shape of the tops of the buildings along Luton Road was important to people. That's a heritage feature, which isn't, I didn't notice. I mean, you look up and it's there and it's lovely. That's the kind of thing that we'll be looking for in this, but also creating new heritage. It sounds a bit weird to say new heritage, but again, going back to the Arches area with all the murals that are on the walls, or going back to our festivals aren't actually that old. If you think about the heritage farms that we've got going in Medway, you know, the festivals are quite new, and the work that we're doing in other parts, and the fact that we've just been recently, over the last few years, welcoming the Ukrainian community into our hearts and what they bring to it, and that will become part of our heritage going forward. And all those aspects of it, that's what the list is all about, telling that story. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Simon. Are the recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Up next, agenda item 8. One of those things, of course, that could go on that list are village halls. As if by magic, we're going to give some contributions to the WHO community to make that happen. So, Simon, over to you for this item. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. And apologies for my voice. It's going slightly croaky, a bit like Jesus. I've got some water here. So this is about the replacement of the WHO Community Village Hall. It was built in the 1960s. It is really not fit for purpose. And this is about how, with the Section 106 funding, that we've been sort of contributions from various developments in the WHO, St Werburgh and Chatham parish area. These have been brought together to provide sufficient funding for them to take this project forward. So really, that's basically what the report is about, seeking approval to transfer these funds to the WHO St Werburgh and Chatham Parish Council to support the building of the new hall in Pottery Road. I think this is also supported by the neighbourhood plan that's just been published last year for the area, and the planning application has already been submitted and is currently under consideration. So, as I say, it's a fairly straightforward decision on our part, I think, to go ahead with this and wish the community there all the best. This is a exciting time for them in so many ways. They are a growing community. There's a lot going on there in terms of development and stuff like that, and this is their response to it. Let's build a bigger, better parish hall to encourage our community to come in, and we should be supporting that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon. Any other colleague? Teresa, please.
Something for everyone in Medway. And I think this is, as Simon says, really exciting. It brings together long-held ambitions to improve the halls and show what we can do with developer contributions and a bit of determination. So I wish everybody luck with the project as well. I think it'll be lovely for everyone who lives there now and for the new communities coming forward to have somewhere to gather, hire out for family parties, enjoy community activities. It's a really good news story.
Thank you. Any other colleague? No. Before I come back to Simon, I'll be supporting this recommendation wholeheartedly. It's been interesting. I've been really pleased at a couple of occasions to speak to rooms full of people from town and parish councils. We had the privilege of hosting the Kent Association of Local Councils AGM at the Corn Exchange this year, and I was very pleased to be one of their guest speakers talking on the issue of local government reorganisation. And people look to us as the only unitary authority in Kent as to how is that relationship between a unitary authority and a town and parish council. And I think if you ever wanted a practical example of this, and why local government reorganisation matters, it's this. Of course, we are the only council dealing with this area, so it's not a two-tier authority. Sometimes that can be complex when it comes to Section 106 agreements and contributions. We're doing this absolutely positively, proactively, and again, I know, Simon, you have a good working relationship with all of the parish councils in your various portfolio capacities. So, and I've been to see this particular parish council, had a good conversation with them. We didn't agree on absolutely everything, but where we disagreed agreeably, and that's fine. And I have confidence that this parish council will deliver a good project. Again, one of the comments I've made to the Kent Association of Local Councils, or Labour councils, but mainly local councils, is it will be for the leadership of unitary authorities and the leadership of parish and town councils as to how those bodies interact. I've been very clear since we took control and had the privilege to serve since 2023. I want a positive relationship with parish councils. Those are volunteers who give their time, and want to make a difference to their small communities as they are here in Medway. So absolutely welcome this. Of course, one of the things that a community village hall can be used for is as a polling station, and I'm obliged to remind all residents of Who, St Werburgh and Chatham that there is a by-election this coming Thursday. I would encourage everybody there to vote. Don't forget your photo ID. And of course, hopefully a future election, they'll be voting in their new parish community hall. So I'll be very supportive of this. Thank you. Simon, back to you.
Thanks very much, Vince. Nothing really to add to that. No, it's an exciting project, and look for colleague support for it.
Thank you. Is the recommendation agreed? Thank you very much. Let's move on to item 9 on page 153. That's the Medway Developer Contributions and Obligations Guide consultation. Simon, over to you.
So, as we saw from the previous item, the role of contributions from development is fundamental to how we deliver local services, and we all agree that there's something that's necessary. But in order to do that piece of work properly, we need to have the right sort of administrative structure in place, if you like, and that's what this is all about. The previous iteration of this was drawn up in 2018, so it's now quite out of date and needs updating. But more importantly, this is the kind of background work that goes on behind a local plan. So as the local plan comes through, and hopefully in due course will be approved and adopted for Medway, we need an up-to-date developer contributions and obligations guide to really get that structure in place, that delivery of community elements in place, and deal with the contributions and other aspects of what developers are required to do as part of bringing development forward. It's set in stone, if you like. As part of that process, then, this is the first step in producing that, which is a consultation, which will take place over the coming months, and then it will end up at our ONS committee for Regen in June for their consideration as well, and it's all part of the process within the Section 106 and stuff is in the Town and Country Planning Act of 1990, so it's a statutory process that we have to go through. I'm not quite sure there's anything more I need to add to that at the moment. We're opening the consultation through this decision this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa?
Thank you very much, Simon. And as you say, a critical document. And, I'm really pleased to look there on page 177 and 178 of the document at all of the things that are mentioned there in terms of infrastructure, something that people worry about when they hear about new housing. And here's a very clear guidance about what we expect there to be and how we're going to use the contributions to make sure that the new communities have got infrastructure. So I think, again, this is very, very welcome. It includes all kinds of things that people worry about, like waste and recycling, like public rights of way, about the provision of leisure, about the provision of open spaces, as well as, critically, the things that we need for health and education. So it's really good to have this on the public record, to be sending a message out about what we want. I hope that people will join in with the consultation. And it is about that strong management of developers, making sure that we get high quality new communities in Medway.
Thank you, Teresa. I can't see any other colleagues, so before I go back to Simon, this is critically important because the current guide is out of date, and therefore arguably developments which are agreed using the existing guide, the residents of Medway are not getting the levels of which we collectively need and deserve. So absolutely bringing this forward is the right thing to do. Interestingly, and timing is everything, as some colleagues may be aware, I sit on the National Fire Authority effectively, and there's an interesting conversation there on planning. It had two aspects. One was around, statutory, because Kent Fire and Rescue is not a statutory consultee. So from that perspective, that's interesting. And then there was a second part of the debate, which is actually, should fire authorities be seeking to be on contributors' guides and developer guides? And that's an interesting, again, I'm not proposing that, but this consultation will allow all of those sorts of debates to happen, again, similarly with policing, I suspect. So, look, this is really welcome, really pleased we're consulting on this. And as Teresa said, I'd encourage everybody who's interested in this to get involved. Really pleased it's going to scrutiny before it comes back to us. Pre-decision scrutiny is always welcomed by this administration. And the final thing I'd say is that the guide's really important, but as I've been saying to any developer I've met over the last year, they need to be clear and transparent when they're talking to the public. It's all well and good saying, actually, if we get this planning permission, we'll have this amount of money for the NHS, for example. What some developers, not all, but some developers forget to say is that will be available after we've sold the 499th house. So again, I think there's a responsibility on developers to be open and transparent and honest about what they anticipate would be in any Section 106 agreement between them and us as a local planning authority. But of course, this guide will help give some pretty clear guidelines as to what the public can expect. Simon, back to you.
Yep, thanks very much. It's just a couple of additional points. I did sort of mention about how this is a legal process that we're in the middle of there. So the final document, when it's approved by Cabinet, will become a supplementary planning document that is considered in all planning applications through our planning process, because that's how important, that's the weight it carries, if you like. It's also looking at it in the context of what we call the infrastructure delivery plan for our local plan. So as the local plan goes through its approval process and adoption, it then needs to be implemented, which is a kind of iterative process over the 15 years of the local plan. Supplementary planning document of this weight sits alongside our implementation of the infrastructure for the local plan itself. So that's how important this document is. I think one of the other aspects is about how the public perceive accessibility to information about Section 106. There's often queries come into members on a fairly regular basis about what do we get out of all this development. Well, this document actually spells out exactly what you get from developer contributions. And I think that to get that message across, huge thanks to our comms team who are literally putting together, and I think it's gone to press already in Next Medway Matters, a sort of a picture of what Section 106 contributions look like. So a big thanks to them for taking up the baton of that. And I'm sure it will generate a lot of comment once that gets out into onto everybody's doormats. And then I think it's the April edition. So there you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon. I can give a spoiler alert to say I've seen that page and it's very clear and it shows exactly where some funds go. And what's clear is it goes to all parts of Medway. That's important to recognise. So thank you for that. And again, echo your thanks to the comms team as always. Are colleagues happy to agree to recommendations as laid out? Thank you. We'll pause just to give Harinder a moment to leave the room. But you do have to come back, I'm afraid. Sorry about that. Let's move on then to item 10, articles on the highway. Alex, over to you.
Thanks, Vince. I don't think there was any danger of me saying anything in the 10 seconds it took Harinder to move there that wasn't already in the papers. But just for clarity, what this proposed consultation is and what it isn't. So it supersedes a policy which was adopted but never implemented 10 years ago by a previous council. And that policy included pavement licensing, which has been superseded by a separate policy which has been adopted, which regulates tables and chairs that can be put outside cafes and restaurants. So this is essentially the everything that isn't that covered off, with the exception of things like footway parking, which is also being looked at under a separate work stream. So what we're talking about are those advertising boards you might see outside newsagents or cafes or shops. So the sort of A boards and other sorts of displays. It sets out a clear criteria for what is acceptable and what isn't. Because while these things absolutely can bring life to a high street, and I think in Medway we have some examples of good practice and some examples of poor practice. So I think people would agree that by and large, the signage outside the shop fronts on Rochester High Street is, generally speaking, a delight. It adds to the character of the place. But there are other high streets in towns nearby where luridly coloured skips that people might be aware of outside certain shops appear, and are not necessarily as welcome an addition to the streetscape as a sign might be. So this, the proposal here is to ask members to note that this supersedes the 2016 policy, to agree the draft policy set out in the appendix, and to go out to a consultation with stakeholders on what this means to them and what they expect from it. And I think it's one of those things where actually every one of Medway's residents is a stakeholder in this, because this governs not just the way we use our high streets and other shopping parades and elsewhere, but it's absolutely, just goes to the heart of issues of access. I think we all get important correspondence from residents around pavements which are perhaps blocked by various items, and often it's not with any malign intent, but people don't necessarily give due regard to people who perhaps have mobility issues or require the use of a wheelchair or a mobility scooter. So it's really important that this policy sets out what's acceptable, what has to happen to those items at the start and the end of a day, and that we are really clear, fair, and that everyone is expected to, once again, play by the same set of rules, regardless of where they are in Medway.
Thank you very much, Alex. Very clear. Luella, please.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex. And thanks, Karen Tamsek, for this report, because I know my ward colleagues and I in Gillingham, we have the High Street, really welcome this proposal to consult with the public, because we are contacting, and Karen actually has kindly come and seen Gillingham High Street, where we've got some shopkeepers, various business owners finding an inconsistency, because we have the pavement, the table and chairs licensing policy. Those table and chairs sometimes may not take up as much space as some of these displays that come out a lot further from the shop front, who currently don't have any licensing or any policy in place, so they know. Now, I'm not saying people are deliberately overtaking the space outside their shops, but now with this, with a policy to tell them the exact rules around it, it will really help make fair and consistent approach across all of the obstacles on the highway, basically. So I'm pleased to see that. I'm also pleased that it includes temporary obstructions outside of residential properties, because that also, as Alex said, people don't deliberately do that, but sometimes there's difficulty, especially on a narrower street where there are obstructions out on the pavement, people with mobility and sight issues, they're just not expecting them to be there. It just makes people think, and I think that's really important. It's as I said, it's offering a consistent approach. And I think everyone should, and that's anyone, any resident, as Alex has literally just said, should take the opportunity to feed back where they think there are obstructions on the highway, because it's not always clear to everybody. So honestly, I'm really enthusiastic about it, and I'm really pleased it's come forward, because it is so needed, just to give a fair approach to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Luella. Can't see any other colleague indicating. I'll say just one quick thing before I go back to Alex, and that's Luella, you're right to say this policy is across Medway, whereas historically, for example, I didn't represent it at the time, but one of the policies was only focused on Chatham High Street, which seemed disproportionate. And certainly traders there were asking, why is there a Chatham tax, as it was referred to me several times, to which I said, I'm not running the council, I'll ask a question. Now we are running the council, we're making it clear and very, very transparent for everyone to see how we will do this. So tidying up the mess from, say, in some cases, a decade ago. Alex, back to you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's simply unfair if one part of Medway is expected to do something that is not the case elsewhere. I think in terms of the charging regime for this, really important to point out that these are modest annual charges, which are not designed as a money-making scheme, but simply to cover the administration costs of running a scheme like this, because there's no point having a rule if there are no consequences for breaking those rules. And so what responsible shopkeepers will be doing is contributing to the regime, which makes sure that everyone else plays by the rules that they are following. So, well, I recognise that nobody really wants to pay for anything, and nobody wants anything that's extra. That's where the regime comes in for that. I think also just picking up on Luella's point about the consultation on this draft policy, I think it's really important that we are agile when we come up with these policies. 10 years ago, when the previous policy was developed, no one had ever heard of Amazon lockers or all the other sort of paraphernalia, which has become a regular sight on our high streets. Now, most of that is going to be on private land and is probably, not under the purview of this. But it's important that we look at all these consequences to ensure that even if it is on private land, does it then have an impact on the public highway as well? So I think if people have views on that, they're certainly not shy about sharing those views with me, and I welcome that correspondence from residents on issues like pavement parking. That's not what's covered here, but I would urge people to have a look at the policy, particularly those who are likely to be impacted in terms of having to apply for a licence for articles on the highway. But it's a policy that I think is set out pretty clearly as it stands. If we've missed something, let us know.
Thank you very much indeed, Alex. Colleagues happy to agree the consultation commences?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. We'll pause for a second to allow Harinder to come back in. Welcome back. Let's move on to item 11, which is we're moving into Gateway 1 and 3 reports. So Gateway 1, which is on EV charging, and handing over to Alex once again.
Thanks. And this you can take your time, Harinder, and just give me time to draw breath on back-to-back items. This is the early stage of procurement for on-street EV charging. The way I would look at this is EV charging for the many, not the few. Most of us in Medway don't have the luxury of living in a house with a driveway and the ability to charge an electric vehicle off-road. And thus far, it's certainly impacted on my decisions around replacing vehicles powered by fossil fuels. And I hope that the wider availability of on-street EV charging will allow more people to make that step. We've seen the impact of current affairs on oil prices, and that will not be so quickly followed by increases in electricity prices, which are thankfully coming down thanks to decisions made by central government. So that's the sort of thing that this unlocks. But essentially, what this procurement is about is awarding or passing on the award of £2.14 million of funding for delivering that on-street EV charging. The proposal is that we do this by finding a provider where the financial and operational risk is transferred to them. So this isn't something that is going to bear a financial risk for Medway Council taxpayers, but they will be able to benefit from the investment that we are unlocking through doing this. So it's estimated contract value between 2 million and 30 million of operator-funded investment, not council spend, and there will be a net revenue percentage share payable to the council once agreed utilisation thresholds are met. So I think that's also a useful thing to point out, not something negative on the balance sheet and further down the line, something that is potentially positive. And it's really important that we get cracking with this to make sure that we do not lose access to the funding that has been agreed. So on that basis, I would recommend that we crack on with the Gateway 1 procurement process.
Thank you very much indeed. Simon.
Yes, thanks very much. Thanks to Alex and to the whole team who've been responsible for getting this together, particularly Karen, who's worked incredibly hard on this. I know she has. Really, really welcome. In fact, it's long overdue, to be honest. I think that we're now in a position to do this, so it's very exciting. A lot of other local authorities have already got a lot of on-street parking available, and the more we have accessibility to this technology, the better in so many different ways, particularly for our environment. But it's also an exciting area of growth in our economy as well, in the production of these cars and the infrastructure that's required for them. And it's just part of a wider picture of delivery of EV generally, so that we're in close consultation with the bus companies about how we get electric buses into Medway. Are also looking at possibility of introducing charging hubs in some of our key places like IPM and places where vans can charge up, and loads of local businesses now would much rather, and are starting to use EV vans, and they need charging facilities as well. So this is part of a much wider strategy and approach to how we bring EV into the community. And at the end of the day, it doesn't mean perhaps less traffic on the road. It can not really massively reduce the volume of traffic on the road. What it will do is reduce pollution by a massive amount. And we've seen the outcome of reduced pollution in other parts of the country and how important that is for everybody's health and well-being. So hugely supportive of this. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Simon. I can't see anybody else. So Alex, back to you.
Thanks for those comments. Yeah, I absolutely agree on the importance of democratising the availability of EV charging for vehicles. It would be remiss of me not to take the opportunity to point out to anyone who's listening in central government that when we have mentioned highway maintenance earlier in this meeting, that electric vehicles are heavier and do lead to greater wear and tear on our highways. And I would certainly make the appeal that while it's welcome that we've had additional funding to improve our highways infrastructure, that future funding should be cognizant of the fact that as we transition towards more electric vehicles, that does run the risk of greater wear and tear on roads that are already taking a punishment from climate change and years of previous underinvestment. So, I think really important that we do this in a way that doesn't put the council at financial risk, but it does retain operational control of location of those vehicle charging points as well. So I would reassure people that that is not us handing over our streets to a private provider. This is about setting out the framework for a contract which we will be the masters of on residents' behalf to ensure that those charging points are delivered where is appropriate and where they're needed most. So with that, I would move the recommendations.
Thank you very much. The recommendation agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Let's move on to, again, both Gateway 1 and Gateway 3. The bus information screens, again, I would hand over to Simon for that.
Keeping up with the paperwork. So just before I start on this, I just wanted to introduce a slight amendment to the report in the summary and in the body of it. The number of real-time information screens is listed as 34. The actual number we're going ahead with is 26. And I'll get down into to that in a moment. So there'll be 6 will be at Chatham bus station. And they'll be at the various stops there, and then 20 others will be at key stops throughout Medway, and that's listed as to where they're going to be. We know where they're going to be. So this is the start of a process. So these real-time information screens are about making sure that it's a much more practical way, an easy way, and more accessible way for people to use buses, knowing that they're running on time, or if they're running late, then the information's directly in front of them. It's also backed up by CCTV, which is important because one of the sort of key drivers for this is about introducing a way of helping people to use buses, and it fits in very neatly into our One Medway Council plan about a clean, green, safe and connected community. That's where this policy sits, directly underneath that approach. And that idea of it being clean and green is fine in terms of more people using buses, and the numbers of people using buses is gradually increasing Medway, which is very exciting. But equally, making the safe and connected communities part of that process as well. And having CCTV at the bus stops makes people feel safer, particularly in the evening. So this is the start of the process of awarding to Kindy, which is one of our lacto companies who've got all the technology and are geared up ready to deliver this. There'll be a direct award to them, and we're asking colleagues to approve a delegation of this to the Director of Place, finalise the contractual arrangements. I think that's pretty much I need to say at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. Anybody, any questions? Teresa?
As a bus user, great news. It's my question. You know, so many people ask, why haven't we got this in Medway? And I do pay tribute actually to colleagues at Kindy, because some experience brought to bear by particularly Neil Young has really moved this forward quickly. And the improvement in community safety associated with it is very welcome.
Thank you. Alex?
Yeah, just to echo some of what Teresa's saying there in terms of that, you know, this really plugs a potential gap where, you know, it's all very well having CCTV on buses and it's all very well knowing when the bus is going to arrive, but that feeling of safety and security when you're waiting on the bus is really important too. Teresa and I both sit on the Kindy shareholder board and have been really impressed with the rigour with which they've approached the improvements around the CCTV network across Medway. So this is not going to sit in isolation. These will be cameras that feed into a really impressive control room at Gun Wharf, where people can be reassured that there are people watching and that they can go about the business of Medway with a feeling of safety and security. So I'm pleased to support this.
Thank you very much. Like Teresa, I should absolutely declare an interest. That doesn't mean I've got to leave the building, but blimey, the lack of information currently is painful compared to other areas of similar size of 300,000 residents. So not only having it at the, as the previous administration called it, the dynamic bus facility, but also at a number of stops across Medway. And I know that number will increase over time. And I know you've referred to that elsewhere, Simon. So this is really important. And actually, it's an expectation for bus users actually to have that better bus information. And the CCTV element, we shouldn't underestimate that as well, particularly in the bus station. I guess there is a wider point around this issue, and the good people of Medway on social media, some more helpful than others, have pointed out, of course, it will just tell you that the bus services are running late. That would be true in some cases because buses occasionally run late, but actually having that information in real time is really important. So actually knowing that is genuinely a good thing to do. Of course, colleagues will know that, in my view, the way to have the best bus services is for us to have devolution, to be part of that foundation strategic authority, which the government have offered to us, and I hope all 14 councils sign up to that. Because that puts us, pardon the pun, that puts us on the journey to better public transport, because that's ultimately what the residents of Medway deserve. And we just have to look at whether it is West Yorkshire with Tracy Brabin, Manchester with Andy Burnham, or indeed the Liverpool City region with Steve Rotherham, and others, that ability for a mayoral combined authority to revolutionise public transport, and in particular bus services, shouldn't be underestimated. So, sorry for this pun, this is the first stop on a long journey which needs to be sped up, but at least we'll know what time that journey is going to be here for. Simon, back to you.
Thanks very much, Vincent. Thanks for the puns, I think, possibly. And thank you, colleagues, as well, for the support for this. I mean, it's really, this is a process we're going through. A journey is an obvious word. In terms of how we transform, I've said it a number of times. Medway's growth is rapid, it's fast, there's more to come, another 24,500 homes. We cannot fit any more cars onto our roads. It's as simple as that. Congestion is already a massive problem. In order to reduce congestion, people need to travel in a different way, and buses lie at the heart, and the operation of buses lie at the heart of how that works. It's working around the country. We've seen what it's like in London and Leeds and Bristol and Birmingham, where this approach is working. We're not creating anything new here by encouraging greater bus use and this is just part of that initiative, if you like, where we're going to do it. And I'll be honest with you, thanks very much to a Labour government for generously supporting this financially. These are the biggest amounts of bus service improvement plan funding we've ever had, and that's what sits at the heart of that. The enthusiasm of the officers under Ruth's team is amazing. Ruth and his team, they are very passionate about this, and we see it daily in how they go about their work. We're getting some very positive feedback from the media on this. Kent Online have just been talking about it, so there's lots going on here, and there's more to come. This is just a part of a process. There's 20 screens plus the 6 at Chatham bus station here that are listed, but there's a lot more to come as it rolls out, and it will go out into the rural towns and villages as well. So yeah, thank you very much.
Excellent. I look forward to seeing the information when it comes to those free bus weekends as well, which again is funded thanks to the Labour government. Are colleagues happy to agree the recommendations for item 12? Thank you. We'll move on to item 13. Remind colleagues, of course, we've got the blue papers. No one's indicated that they wish to talk on that, so it means we can not have to exclude the press and public, which is always my preference. And I'll go over to Luella to move the report.
Thank you, Vince, and thanks to the housing officers for the report. So this is regarding the HRA Estate Services and Homes for Independent Living communal cleaning contract, which was previously under 2 separate contracts. One awarded to Norse, and the other one was a direct award from the council to Norse. The other one was a HRA, and one was under the corporate Norse contract. So this brings those 2 similar work together into one new contract because it was overdue for procurement, and it's been reviewed. I should also add that when the contract was put out to tender, during the review and the selection period, as part of the process, representatives from our really valued tenants panel were present and gave their feedback on the best way forward. And Medway North scored the highest during the competitive tender. So the recommendation is the Cabinet to agree to award the contract to North Commercial Services Group to be delivered by Medway North, and that's to commence from the 1st of April this year.
Thank you very much, Luella. Can't see any colleagues. Let me say a couple of bits on this, because I think, and I know Simon and I are going to one of the scrutiny committees shortly to talk about where we've taken as a cabinet and as an administration a variety of views around where we are with Medway North. And I think this report shows, look, that partnership is stronger than ever. Again, I won't stray into the blue papers, but what's very, very clear is in a very full competitive approach, Medway North have been successful through the criteria, which is clear and transparent, as people would expect: quality of service, best value for money, etc. So that partnership remains strong, but it's important that we always review these things, you know, and I think that's certainly part of the process, which I know a number of Cabinet colleagues have been through this process. So really pleased with that. And as always, and it was great to see both Mick and Maxi at Nashar Khan's Housing Summit last week. It was great to see them both there. They are tremendous voices, working with us, but holding us to account, being a genuine tenant's voice. And this is yet another reminder, of course, through LGR. One of the things that we have absolutely committed to is we are everyone's council, but for thousands of people, we are their landlord, and we'll keep that communication going as well, which is why this contract being agreed for 5 years to give that transitional period for LGR is the right thing, and I'm very supportive of it. Back to you, Luella.
Thank you, Vince. And actually, thank you for highlighting that about the North contract, and that, you know, it doesn't always have to change, but their contract was the most, their offer was, their bid was the most cost effective, at over £45,000 per year cheaper than the next nearest competitor. So that's an over £200,000 saving over the 5-year contract. So it was definitely the right thing to do, bring them together, review them all. It was overdue for review anyway. So I'm pleased that that has happened, because it will save our taxpayers money in the long run, as we're offering the best we can for them. So it's just to go with the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luella. Colleagues happy to agree the recommendation? Thank you. Then we'll move to the final item, which again is on the supplementary agenda, and I'll hand over to Zoe.
Thank you. This item is regarding rescinding the Cabinet Decision 8I 2025, the grounds maintenance contract. Further to the notice to staff liable to TUPE transfer prior to 28 days of the facilities management service moving back to Medway Council on the 1st of April. Updated information was given to FM and HR teams detailing a further two additional grounds maintenance engineers liable to transfer to the FM services. This info required to be provided to the top 3 contract bidders, and it's been assessed by FM Contracts Manager that the service delivery should return to the council FM services, enabling better value for money, greater control of service provision, and this rescinding the decision 8I 2025 regarding the awarding of the GM contract. Cabinet recommended to rescind the original decisions on the 8th of January 2026, awarding the contract to Canvins Group and returning the GM service delivery to Medway Council FM service delivery from the 1st of April 2026. Cabinet is asked to agree the above as urgent and should not be subsequent to call-in. And paragraph 2 sets out the reasons for decision in relation to oversight, accountability and responsibility of the service delivery. As per section 3 of the item, this decision will retain the original budget of £200,000, and Cabinet are asked to accept this report as urgent as the next Cabinet meeting supersedes the date of transfer stroke implementation from the 1st of April. Calling can be waived where there could otherwise prejudice the Council's interest in delivering the service. The proposal is to opt for option 2 to bring delivery of the service in-house to the Council under FM service delivery.
Thank you very much, Zoe. That's very helpful. Simon, please.
Yeah, thanks very much, Vincent. Thank you, Zoe, for bringing this report so quickly to the Cabinet. And so, as colleagues are aware, we've been working for a long while now on our relationship with what Medway North Services will be delivering for us here in Medway. And we knew this wouldn't be a smooth process. We knew there would be different aspects of it which would change as time moved on. And we knew that there would be some issues which would be sort of not resolved until the last minute kind of thing. And just wanted to put it on record, which I will be doing a number of times. A huge thanks to the whole team, from Richard right down to Ruth and Adam and the rest of the team responsible for this, and to Bhupinder, who've put in a massive amount of effort and work into getting this process right. We have a responsibility as a Cabinet and as a Council and as an administration to look at all our services on a regular basis, and to review them and to revise them, going back to what you just mentioned, Vince, about quality of service and value for money. Those are the two fundamental issues that we keep in mind all the time. And looking at the range of services that Medway North was delivering, we decided to make some changes. The relationship we have with them is still just as strong as ever. Areas such as waste management and our send transport is fantastic. Already new contracts are being awarded, as we've just heard from the previous. So there's no issues around that. It's just how we deliver, what we deliver with those fundamental criteria around value and quality that we're after. And in this process, it was not going to be easy. It was going to be complex and difficult to manage, and this is just one of the issues which come up as a sort of last minute thing that needs to be resolved as a matter of urgency. So a huge thanks to Zoe and to Ruth and the team and to the FM team for getting this sorted out as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. I can't see any other colleagues, so before I go back to Zoe, you're absolutely right. This has been a detailed, long conversation, and it is regrettable that we're in this position, but this decision, which we're about to take in a moment, I believe is the right one with the information we now have available to us. And I would echo your thanks for, it feels like almost all of the corporate management team in one form or another have been involved in this, whether it's directly or because some of the services delivered are within their directorate. So this is important. And look, as we said with literally the previous agenda item, this relationship is important. It continues to be strong. But that said, it's always important. We have a duty ultimately to the residents of Medway to ensure that service delivery is always at the appropriate point at the appropriate time. And that's where the decisions that we took previously are. And with the new information we have now available to us and the process that's gone through as laid out in the report, that's why we're taking this decision tonight. So I will be supporting this. Back to you, Zoe.
Simply to emphasise the urgency of agreeing this tonight in order that we can deliver the services for grounds maintenance.
Thank you. Colleagues, happy to agree to recommendations? Agreed. Thank you. That finishes tonight's meeting. Thanks very much and have a good rest of your Tuesday night.